Today's webinar is entitled From Mine to Market, Managing the Aggregate and Industrial Mineral Value Chain. This webinar is one in a series of webinars presented as a part of the Esri Mining Webinar Series. And it does depart somewhat what we've done in the past in that we're focusing in on the downstream end of the mining life cycle. That is, you've mined and processed your material, now what? Today's webinar is going to show you through scalable, service-based applications, examples of how to explore your business data by building dynamic maps and how to execute a marketing or project plan in order to meet your customers' delivery requirements and control operating costs. And all the while uncovering in real time spatial insights that leverage location-based data. So I am getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's do some housekeeping, then we'll get started, and let's start by getting ourselves introduced. My name is Pete Will. I'm an account manager on Esri's Natural Resources team, and my primary focus is business development for the mining industry. I'm responsible for developing relationships and presenting business solutions to all of Esri's mining customers, from precious metals to energy fuels, base metals, and most importantly for today, the aggregate and industrial mineral industries. I've been with Esri now coming up on 13 years, and I'm talking to you today from Erie, Colorado. I'm also joined today by my teammate, Matt Ballard, who I'll let introduce himself. Matt, are you there?
Yep, thanks, Pete. Yeah, like Pete said, my name is Matt Ballard. I'm a solution engineer on the natural resources team at Esri. So I'm really a technical resource for our customers in the mining industry, helping to get value out of the Esri software that you implement. I've been at Esri for 4 years, and I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, and thank you, Matt. Before looking at today's agenda, I did want to quickly explain why we're doing this webinar. In working with our customers in the aggregate and industrial minerals space, we've seen several key areas where geospatial analysis and workflows help achieve business value. And today we're going to show you 3 trends we've identified as opportunities to improve business processes through location intelligence. So let's review today's agenda. First, I'll provide a quick overview of who Esri is. Then we'll take a quick look at current trends and what the aggregate and industrial mineral industries are challenged by. And then we'll follow that up by looking into expectations that relate to business value and deliverables to the end user. We're going to spend the majority of today's webinar on 3 real-life demos, since to me these demos bring our technology to life. They're very valuable in helping you understand and visualize how our technology can be applied. The first demo will present business development workflows that help identify new markets and use a variety of different data sources. We'll then look at the production and inventory management side of things, where we'll calculate accurate estimates to identify where inventories can match orders. And finally, we'll look at optimizing delivery routes and e-ticketing. We'll wrap that up with a question and answer session, and we'll be answering questions during the demos as well. All right, so who we are. For those of you who are not familiar with Esri and are joining us for the first time, welcome. Let me tell you a little about ourselves. Esri is the global market leader in GIS technology and has been in business as a software company for over 50 years. We're based in Redlands, California, with offices around the United States and the world. Something I stress to my mining customers is that Esri technology is very scalable, allowing it to service organizations of every size. We provide a set of analytical and visualization tools that allow you to derive deeper insights from spatial, location-based data, with an end goal of improving operational and business results through greater operational awareness. Esri and the Science Aware helps you understand the where, the what, and the why, behind your ever-changing spatial data. So Esri offers both traditional local client software solutions as well as web-based SaaS and on-premise enterprise solutions. Our software is designed to be used by power users like geoscientists and engineers and business analysts, but also by the consumer of the content that is generated by these power users. And in this way, the entire organization is served. We have products and solutions that work for everyone, and we're honored to have worked with many mining companies around the world to create value to the bottom line. So I did want to speak briefly to what I see as the current market conditions within the aggregate and industrial mineral space. These are anecdotal observations, based off my conversations with customers in 2020 and this year, but I think they're backed up by what the industry is reporting itself. In general, there seems to be a better sense of stability and optimism. Commodity prices seem to have stabilized a bit. There's been quarry expansions permitted, as well as some, highly publicized M&A activity, and as well a willingness to explore digital technologies to make the industry more competitive and efficient. And this includes applying GIS. So overall, these positive market conditions are creating new use cases for GIS. But there's still many hurdles to overcome in an improving market. In business development, let's say, there's a challenge to keep pace with changing market conditions. But new technologies can provide the capabilities to perform tasks like, multi-factor market analysis at a whole new scale and speed in order to uncover new business opportunities. And in quarry operations, it's really all about material volumes and their availability. The use of new technologies to accurately understand your stockpile volumes, material types, and the time to produce and replenish these stockpiles will gain you a better understanding of your overall operational picture. And in material delivery and logistics, things such as continuously changing traffic patterns, the availability of the right equipment, and higher operating costs from fuel and labor are all factors in turning a profit. So I ask the question, can we apply technology to react and plan to these trends and challenges in the industry? I say yes. We can standardize and automate workflows. This makes it work in the background and automatically. We can access a wealth of both public and private data sources, going from data poor to data rich. We can improve analysis with imagery, real-time data, and dashboards to analyze current conditions and operational status. And we can increase collaboration and promote information sharing by adopting web-based applications. Across the board, this makes us more responsive, agile, flexible, and provides the ability to meet new and changing business requirements. And again, in my opinion, to me, it's time to adopt a digital approach for better business. I've been seeing a need and a push in the aggregate industry to move more toward digital workflows. Of course, the aggregate industry isn't alone here. There's a lot of industries looking to adopt a digital approach to doing business. And I feel there's a general expectation that you should be moving in that direction. There's an expectation in many industries, as well as in our social lives, in the consumerization of business data. If you can find your closest Starbucks on a phone, why can't we identify where our closest quarry or project location is? Then there's the fact that the incoming generation of quarry professionals, really expect digital access to the information that they need for greater workflow efficiency. So we must be able to provide information to any device, anywhere, anytime, which in turn allows you to put the right people, equipment, and material together to improve business outcomes. There's also an expectation related to ROI for technology implementation, including GIS. To me, you can't afford to deploy software solutions simply because it's trending or being slick. You must be able to identify clearly the return to the business. How is it going to gain you a competitive advantage and gain you better understanding of market demands and supply capabilities? By optimizing routes and operational work hours, are you going to reduce downtime and rework? And by maximizing margins and consistently improving customer satisfaction, will an ROI be realized? Again, to me, if you save time, you should be saving money. I have a good customer who often says to me, Pete, we can't really be the only industry facing these challenges. He says, I don't care where the solution comes from, just get it to me, or something, roughly like that. And Esri and our customers have successfully deployed our solutions and captured ROI within many industries and for many companies. So the aggregate industry doesn't have to start from scratch. So I'm just going to pull out one example from this slide, and that's the UPS one. UPS uses their GIS for their on-road integrated optimization and navigation system, or Orion. It delivers location intelligence to 50,000 UPS drivers. And one interesting fact that I pulled out of it was that they learned that by eliminating as many left-hand turns as possible and favoring right-hand turns at all times, UPS saves millions of gallons of fuel each year. That's a lot of fuel, let's put it that way. All right, with that, let's take a breath and switch gears over to the demo side of our webinar. And Matt, you were gonna go ahead and grab control there?
Yep, absolutely. Let me go ahead and take control and share my screen. All right, so let me know if you could confirm, Pete, that my screen's coming across on your side.
Yep, we got it, Matt. Appreciate it. And let me go ahead and do a little intro to this. And what I was hoping we could do with these demonstrations was to help, connect the dots and bring the Esri approach to life, kind of show people what I just talked about, in a picture, in a map. So let's start with the need to develop new leads and markets for the materials you're generating, right? Let's start by showing our viewers how they can get an operational picture of where their current operations are, where there appears to be areas of growth for new markets, and then show them how to best bid that project by seeing where their competitors are so they can gain a competitive edge in bidding and, hopefully winning the project. So if you're ready, take it away and it's all yours.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so as just a quick overview of what I will get into and show, everything that Pete just said, we're going to start off by looking at how you can start to map your own assets and how you can display that for users. Using that information, we'll find opportunities to develop further, develop our business, identify new locations to expand, and then use all this information again to help respond to specific bids, come up with estimates of time that would be required to complete that to help fulfill those requests. To get started though, we're going to look at where our current operations are. So go ahead and open up this application here. And on this map on the right, what we see are all of our 3 different key territories here in southeastern United States, as well as all the locations where we have a mine or a quarry. This is something that typically might be stored in a spreadsheet, or it might be up on a paper map on a wall, or locked away on somebody's computer, but you can provide access through easy-to-use web applications like this one, so that users can quickly identify what your facilities are and any critical information about them. Things like its address, contact information, what material is offered at that location, and whether there's rail access. As well as this is something that can be embedded inside of your public website, right? So for your customers, they can also go to an application like this to quickly find information like what materials you have available. I can search, for example, if I want to find which facilities offer sand, I can apply that. It'll filter my map as well as my list over here. We can see where we've got certain materials. Once we start to understand our own operations, we have a better idea of what is where. That really takes us into that next topic that we wanted to talk about inside of business development, which is identifying opportunities for expansion. And for that, I'm going to go over to this market analysis tab, which brings me into a new application, but I'm still using some of that underlying data of our current locations, each shown again in these black stars. I've also got a layer for railroads underneath here. And what I want to do is, somebody in the business development team, is identify places where there might be gaps in the market because fuel costs and driving time and distances play such a key role. We're going to look at where our competitors are and what geographic areas don't have anybody nearby producing, for example, aggregate. The first thing that I'll do is bring in locations for competitors, and in this case, 2 competitors in this region that we know are prominent and some of the bigger ones. So we've got a series of addresses that were pulled from those companies' websites. And what I can do is turn on, after uploading those locations, geocode them, right? So each of these points now represents competitor A and competitor B, shown in blue and red here. With those locations, we can come up with service areas. So these geographic areas show me which of those companies is the closest to any given location within 15 minutes. So blue means that the closest facility is that blue company. Red means the closest is red. And anywhere where there's no color means there's no facility within a 15-minute distance of that location. So we'll use this to identify gaps, such as down here. The other thing that you might want to look at, though, as you're expanding is demographic data or other business data. And so to look at that, I'm going to go ahead and create a color-coded map to show me where population growth is anticipated in the next 5 years. So I can browse for different variables. In this case, I'm going to grab this 2026 compound annual growth rate. And it'll show me across this region all of the places where the greatest population growth is anticipated. You quickly start to see trends and patterns here in the south and eastern suburbs of Nashville is where the most significant population growth is. We can filter down to just identify those specific areas where the population growth is above 2.5%. Now, as I zoom in, we start to get more and more detail. So it was previously at the zip code level, and now it's at the census tract level. And this gives us a good idea of where population growth is anticipated. With these 2 layers set up, I can start to hypothesize or identify locations where expansion might be warranted. So there's clearly a lot of population growth around here. There's a gap in the market shown by no blue or red competitors, and then there's a railroad that actually happens to run through here. So let's see what it would look like in this area if we were to drop a location here and create a 30-minute drive time area. So the output of this analysis is going to tell us everywhere that's within 30 minutes of this location that I just dropped. All right. So you can see what's within 30 minutes now. We can see we sort of get into just south of Nashville. We can see this whole geographic area. And then we can create infographics which summarize all of this information that we've looked at inside of that 30-minute area. So we have a summary of population trends. Let's give this a quick refresh. What we'll see in that infographic is a summary of population trends, a summary of business data, as well as a summary of all of the different aggregate operators within that area of interest. Let me just re-log in here, give it a minute. Now the application that we're using for this is, as you can see, it's ArcGIS Business Analyst, and it allows for you to bring in your business data that we started with, as well as any public data, as well as any data that Esri would provide. So that's sort of the combination of all those data sources together is what we're working with here. Let's go ahead and recreate that 30-minute drive time area. And regenerate that infographic. Much better. There we go. Here on the left side are our population trends. On the bottom left are the total number of businesses and employees in this area. And then in the center here is a list of all Tennessee Department of Transportation producers and suppliers based on which type of material they create. So concrete, asphalt, aggregate. And so we can use this in the map on the right side to understand the viability of this location. Now, if I go back to our homepage and recap what we've seen so far, we looked at understanding our current operations. We looked at understanding where we should develop further. And the final thing we'll do as business development is actually respond to specific opportunities in bids or requests for proposals. I opened up this third application here, and what we really want to do is be able to quickly respond with accurate estimates of the time and materials that will be required to conduct a project. Right, so each of these locations of our operations are located on the map here, 2 quarries. And the blue dots are locations where projects are. What I can do in this application is search for an address. So let's say I get an address for a project, I can type that into here and quickly zoom to the location where that is. Once I've done that, I can create a job at that location and enter any job details about it, such as, of course, what its address is, what product is being requested, the volume of material, and what the nearest facility is, which I can gather just from looking at the map is this Burgess quarry. Now it asks for me to provide the round trip travel time. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is use this directions widget that's available within the application and just quickly identify what the total amount of time it'll take to get from point A to point B. Here it says it's 14 minutes, so we'll use that information to update this information and say the round trip travel time is 28 minutes and close this. So once we've done that, now when I go click on these features, it's telling me the estimated number of loads based on how much these trucks can carry, the total amount of time based on the round trip travel time, work time, and time spent at the quarries refilling. Then we've got all those job details that were captured. So I, as somebody in business development, can use this information that's been gathered, captured to help make more informed estimates. I could also look at nearby jobs that have been previously entered into the system and look at what we proposed or what prices we gave there and see if we won or lost those bids. So using that information, you can come up with a more accurate bid that will more likely get you a win on any project. We're going to follow this job along for the rest of the webinar, but at this point, we will stop for questions on this business development section, and I'll pass it back over to Pete to field any of those.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and well done. I think that demonstrated, visually the analysis side of it, as well as being able to, grab your enterprise data and interrogate it. So there are a couple questions we had here. I do want to remind everyone, on the webinar that if you do have some questions, please, drop them in the webinar dialog box, and we'll pick them up toward the end as well. And I think a lot of the questions I'm seeing, Matt, come from the data, and you touched on it in your demonstration, but where are you, or where can you pull the underlying data in from?
Yeah, the data is coming from a bunch of places. It could be coming from internal systems like our company's locations. It could come from market research that you do, such as finding those competitor locations or the locations of all the Department of Transportation producers and suppliers, right? So that was public information that was sort of gathered and brought back in. And then there's Esri, or authoritative data that Esri provides. So that was things like the routing and the demographic data. So they're, anywhere you get your data from, those are the three big ones that come to mind, though.
Yeah, nice, and that's what I see most often, especially Excel. It's what a lot of my customers use. And let's say you have a business intelligence application like Power BI. Can you share what you arrived at or derived into one of those applications?
Yeah, you can put this information into Power BI. There's a way to add all of these map layers into Power BI through an add-in for ArcGIS. So you connect to the same data sources and bring them into Power BI. Yeah.
Okay. Well, real good. All right. Well, let's go keep it moving on the demo side of things. And your last demo showed us, our viewers, how to manipulate their data from a business development perspective. So now how about from the mine operations side of things? If it was me and I had just won a project, I'd now want to quickly start to gather information on what my production and reserve situation looks like, and determine how to make sure we have enough of a particular material available. And I'd also want to keep my entire crew updated on the project status without them coming back to the field trailer. So maybe we can do your next demo, and you can show us how to quickly gather and put together these key informational layers so we can start mapping out the next steps to servicing the project we just won.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So within this section, thank you. We're going to run through a couple of demonstrations. First, by looking at, as Pete mentioned, integrating production data. Then we'll look at calculating stockpile inventories, and then taking this data and all these maps that you create into the field in some simple to use mobile applications. And so starting off, we will look at this production dashboard. With this production dashboard, the first thing you'll see at the top left is that asset map that we created in our very first step. So that map is really foundational to everything that we do in our business and shows us where our facilities are and where our assets are. And we can use this map to select any facility. We'll select that facility that we know we're sourcing from, and it pulls back the production information, whether both including what is being produced and its total volumes on any given day, as well as how that facility is operating in terms of what time is spent running versus maintenance. So we're able to get a really quick glimpse into what product might be available any given day at any facility. And we can understand how smoothly it's running, right? We can see days on the right side where where running time fell below 75% of the time. Those are marked in red, and that might present further down the line a bottleneck and resources. And so we are integrating all of this production data, making it quickly accessible within an application like this. On top of that, on the bottom left, based on what we selected, it pulled back some of the most recent drone imagery that we've captured at these facilities. And to look at this one in full screen, I'm actually going to open up the next tab where we can talk about that. So production information gives me daily reports, but sometimes you need more precise information about volumes for stockpile inventory. And that's really where this second demonstration comes in. With drones, we're able to fly over this specific area of interest and quickly determine what the volume and the height for health and safety purposes, for example, of each of these stockpiles is. And then they've been attributed with which product they are, whether it's gravel, sand, crushed stone, and more. To show you how we capture this information, I'm going to open up this tab here to go to SiteScan for ArcGIS. SiteScan for ArcGIS is a cloud-based drone processing, analysis, management, and sharing platform. So what we had done is, with a drone, we went out and flew over this facility, captured a series of photographs over this area, which you saw as those white dots. And with each of these individual photos, you can open them and start to look at them in their original resolution and use this for inspection purposes. But we use it to create these derivative products, which you see on the map. One of them is this imagery base map in orthomosaic, which is just high resolution imagery that you can use as reference. But then we also create 3D products to calculate the volumes of these stockpiles. So I'll draw a circle around this specific stockpile, and then I can view that volume in 3D to see what the total volume of it is. So blue is the surface captured from the drone. Gold color is a flat surface below that stockpile. And then at the bottom left, it's indicating that the cut or the volume is 1,293 cubic meters. So with this information, we're able to ensure that we understand precise volumes of material, whether it's for accounting purposes or whether it's for ensuring that you have material to fulfill those orders that we started with in the first step. You can have a very accurate representation of stockpile volumes. And then ultimately, it's all embedded right in these same applications that we saw. You saw it inside of the production dashboard. It's all within this website that we're working with right now. And it's also accessible in the field, which takes us to this third demonstration in this section, where I have access to all this data from my tablet. So here on my tablet, I can quickly search for this quarries map by name, and then it'll load in all of these relevant data sources for this facility. We've got things like roads, facilities, storage tanks, boundaries, wetlands information, and more. I can even turn on this blasting radius for a planned blast that's occurring this week, or surface contours to look at 3D data here. But as I zoom in, I have access to that drone imagery that we just processed and looked at in the web browser. So you have all of this reference material when you're actually out at a facility, including the ability to click on any of these stockpiles and see what those volumes are and what the material was. And if you don't know what material it is in here, you could also edit the material to provide which material it is through this mobile application. So from here, we flew drones, we processed the imagery, and then we took it out into the field. That wraps up everything that I had to show within this section, and I'll pass it over to Pete.
Yeah, again, Matt, really good job. Appreciate that. And there are some questions coming in. I've got a couple I'll ask right now, but we will, again, I want to assure everybody get to these other questions toward the end of the webinar. Kind of a reoccurring theme here, Matt, you showed that dashboard of production data. Where's that production, or where can that production data get pulled in from?
The production data, probably two places that it could come from. If you have a system in place today, third-party business system that has maybe a database connected to it, you could integrate that with this. So through pushing and pulling the data around between that system and ArcGIS. I have worked with some customers, they might not have a system in place where it's spreadsheet based, and you could configure a mobile application so that site managers could just type this information into a mobile app, just like we saw on that third one. They could just type in the production, the materials, volumes that are created, and push it up to this dashboard directly. So those are the two ways, integration with another system or sort of manual data entry or spreadsheet workflows. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And reserves data, I assume it's somewhat of a similar workflow there.
Yeah, reserves data would be sort of the sort of third tier of volume or inventory management, right? You'd have your stockpiles calculated from drones, you'd have production data on a daily basis, and then you could even have future reserves, and that might be coming from a mine planning system or like a geoscience software. And that could absolutely be integrated into here, so you've got your full asset portfolio. Yeah, that is doable. Mm-hmm.
And the demonstration on the UAV collected data is just brilliant. I can't think of a single customer that doesn't have a UAV program, drone program. So on the site scan side of things, is there a flight planning option that comes with it? Can you take it from planning all the way through flying?
Yeah, there is a flight planning component. There's a mobile app for tablets that allows you to specify your area, specify the flight mode. I saw a question in there about whether it can take photos at oblique angles, which it can. So there is a flight planning app that you can do all that in, and it supports a number of drones. If you have your own flight planning app, though, maybe through a drones manufacturer, you can also absolutely use that one as well. So it's up to you if you'd like to use our flight planning app or one of your own preference.
Okay, and I assume that the images collected can be used as base maps in any of these applications you're showing?
Yeah, I took it into the mobile app and used it as a base map there, but it could also be the base map in, this operations map that we saw at the beginning, or this bidding map. It could be in any of the base maps.
Excellent. All right, so now we've shown our audience how to develop new business and then how to service the project. So let's shift gears and show how to use ArcGIS to get the material to the project on time. So obviously with logistics and delivery, we want to avoid traffic or weather delays, which obviously cause loads to get rejected or bottlenecks to develop at the project site or even the plant. So can you now show us how to get to the site on time? Start with the simple things, and then calculate the quickest and most efficient route to get there, and then try not to get any speeding tickets or overweight loads, which starts things off on the wrong foot. So why don't you show us the logistics and delivery demo?
Yeah, perfect. So we'll walk through 3 sections again in this environment where we're really focused on, opportunities have been identified. We understand material in place, but we're leaving the mine and we're headed to that, or the quarry, and we're headed to the project location. And there's 3 things we'll look at. One is route optimization, because fuel costs are oftentimes the second most important cost in any operations. We want to reduce fuel costs and reduce time spent driving. Then we'll look at monitoring operations real time once you have that optimized, and then actually collecting data again in the field from a mobile app for e-ticketing purposes. So to start off with route optimization is In some senses, it's something that we are all very familiar with, right? Everybody has opened up Apple or Google Maps and gotten directions to the nearest, certain location. But it gets more complicated when it comes to business operations, because it's not oftentimes point A to B, but it's maybe starting at 2 different depots or quarries and getting directions to many multiples of that in terms of orders or project locations, right? So I've got 2 depots here, our starting quarries. We've got about 8 different orders, and we need to understand the best way to fulfill this, the best route to fulfill these, given a number of constraints. What we can do is we can plug all that into an algorithm for vehicle routing and come up with what that optimized route is. In this case, for 4 trucks. So we've got 4 vehicles moving around. And each of them, you can see what order they take to go to different locations. And if I pull out a specific route here, give it a second to load. Yep, there you go. So this is one of those specific routes for this vehicle. What we see on the bottom left, it starts down here at this facility. It goes up then to this facility, over here, down to here, and then back to its home location. So this is the output of those, and these optimized orders can be shared with people out in the field so they can get directions, which you'll see here in a second. But sometimes these optimized routes, when it becomes complicated, they aren't the most intuitive, right? You might not think, in this case, that the most efficient thing is actually to go to the second facility because they were just over here, and it's actually more efficient to go over here versus to return back. But it incorporates all of this logic and comes up with that optimized order. And it can also start to incorporate things like barriers. So we happen to know in this location there's a residential neighborhood very close to this quarry, and we need to avoid this residential area in any of our route optimization. We want to make sure that we're reducing any potential noise pollution, so we don't get any complaints, or it might be part of a city ordinance not to drive through residential areas like this. The previous optimized route went straight through it, but we can actually incorporate this no-go zone, this area that we're not allowed to drive through, and the routes will recalculate, sending me to these destinations without ever having gone through that residential neighborhood. So with vehicle routing, the goal is this, right? Creating this optimized route, which minimizes fuel costs, minimizes the amount of time spent driving, and maximizes the number of deliveries that can be made within a certain time period. Once you've optimized things, this can be pushed out so the users can go out throughout their day and execute on this work. And back in the office, what you may want to do then is to monitor this in real time. So in today's era, every vehicle is being monitored with an ABL solution, some telematics solution. There's typically a GPS sensor on these vehicles. And what we're able to do is tap into those vehicle locations and bring them onto a map and visualize where those vehicles are in real time. So you'll notice these arrows appeared. Each of these represent the current locations of vehicles on their routes. So we can monitor these and see when people are en route or when they're actually at a job site, and calculate some statistics like how much time people are spending at destinations versus idling versus time spent at plants, maybe refilling on material, as well as the number of stops for each route. So this gives us more insight into the real-time status of our operations. And you can start to incorporate other real-time data sources as well, such as world traffic. So I turned on this traffic layer, which gives me real-time information into how roads are performing at any given time. So yellow is indicating that there's lower speeds, orange even lower, red is issues, green is good, and I can click on any of these to get details about it. But I'll also turn on some recent weather radar information. So this tells us about storms, where they are located, of course, in relation to our operations. And these could be impacting deliveries, right? Because it could make deliveries slower. It could be raining to a point where we can't deliver certain products, like concrete, for example. And so we've incorporated all these real-time data sources to give us one operational overview of delivery and logistics. At this point, we can go over to the final quick demonstration here, which is around e-ticketing. So we planned, we are monitoring, but now we need to collect data in the field from those users and from those drivers. So I'll search for my e-ticketing map, and I get the map that we started off with that requesting or responding to bids, if you recall, at the very beginning. Here I'm able to click on any of those job sites and see the number of loads, time required to complete it, the address, and more. And I can use this information then to get directions directly to this order. So I'll open up ArcGIS Navigator. It'll launch this separate application where I get turn-by-turn directions directly to this location. I also, though, have access to those optimized routes that we created in the first step of this demo. So I can cycle through these, and what it looks like is essentially your end user, the drivers, they would just open up this app and they'd be able to pick whatever route they've been assigned to for any given day. So I just cycled through these to see what each of them looks like, and now I would get turn-by-turn navigation. But more importantly, though, for these drivers and delivery operations, we need to collect data. And so that's where I'm going to add a new load that was delivered to this location. I'll type in information like the truck number, my name as the driver's name, the volume of material which was deposited or delivered, and then information to help us track time and efficiency within our operations. I'll put in our departure time, arrival time, the time that we began work, and then finally the time that work ended. So I typed it all in at this point in time, but in reality, your users would probably type it in when these events occurred. But I typed them all in here, and now I've submitted all of this data, and it'll go back to that central dashboard that we were just looking at. And so to summarize and sort of wrap up everything, I've gone back to our dashboard where we're monitoring in real time, and I can see if I click on this specific job, it tells me which truck and driver delivered what volume of material and how much time they spent at that facility. So we've got full system of record of our delivery operations. So that's everything I had under the logistics side. With that, I think we summarize it here. We looked at route optimization, real-time monitoring, and then e-ticketing. We're going to transition over to a final question and answer session, but before we do that, we did want to leave you with some resources. So these resources are available for you to use. One, this entire website that I've shown today is actually publicly available, so you can access it by going to this URL here or scanning this QR code. We will send out a webinar recording, as Pete mentioned at the beginning. When it comes to Esri, though, we're also here to support you. We have our professional services team if you want to implement anything. We have training if you want to implement it yourself. But really, I would say contact us if you have any questions whatsoever, and we are happy to help out. But from here, pass it over to Pete to field any questions that we have.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And a quick check on time. We have about 10 minutes, so we'll go ahead and go through some of the questions that have come in. If there's any questions that come in, please go ahead and put them in there now. We'll do our best to get them. One of the ones I'll start with is back to the drive times and and the logistics piece, but it actually plays into the bid piece as well. You know, how complex can these drive time algorithms get? You know, how many factors and variables can be applied? There's a question from Patrick with Luckstone. You know, he says, can we put in obstruction data, i.e. bridge limits, into our calculations?
Yeah, 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 you can definitely start to incorporate some of that logic. So you can get complicated and incorporate things like lunch breaks, for example. You know, people need to have a certain, hour-long lunch break in between stops at certain times of the day. That can be incorporated. You can incorporate other road restrictions like heights and weight restrictions. If you have some of that data, that is definitely doable. So you'd start to build up this record of roads that you're sort of permitted to drive on, and that can all be fed into this optimization tool. Yeah.
Okay, good answer. Thank you. One of the things I see a couple things on is back to the real-time tracking. What are your options there as far as is there hardware involved here? How the question is, how are you getting the vehicle locations?
Yeah, the vehicle locations, I briefly mentioned it can come from a variety of places. One, it could come, there's really two, I should say, actually, is an AVL or a telematic solution, so physical GPS hardware on your trucks or equipment. That system that manages that information, we can integrate with, connect to, and get real-time data from. The other way is, if you don't have hardware or you prefer a different route, you can use that mobile app that we looked at to report users' locations. So instead of using hardware in an AVL solution, it would be somebody's phone or tablet, and it would be a mobile application that you'd be using to capture location. Either way works, and both of them will capture real-time information.
Okay, real good. Yeah, now we're getting in some really good questions. So thanks everybody. You've been mostly doing the web-based applications. There is a question here, and if you see any that you like, Matt, go ahead and jump in. I understand that the business analyst can be used effectively in developing countries where data can be reached easily. I'm not sure if I read that correctly, but maybe you can see that on the questions and address that.
Yeah. So the data that's available within ArcGIS Business Analyst, it varies based on which country and what data sources are available in that country. We do have international data that's available. So we'd want to talk with you about which countries in particular you're interested in looking at, what variables are most important. If we don't have the data, though, you still are able to bring in your own proprietary or third-party sourced data into that application. So yeah, there's ways to go about it if you're thinking internationally. Yeah.
Hey, you want to maybe
too about how long ArcGIS Business Analyst has been around.
Perfect.
It's I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I believe it's more than a decade. I remember seeing some demonstrations going way back on Business Analyst. Do you know off the top of your head how old it is, Pete?
I do not. That's a good question, and one we'll follow up on and research a little bit there. But I think the concept has been around for quite a while. It's just the putting it into that web-based application is maybe fairly new, but not new enough that it's a new product. That's for sure. So, and I do see a few questions in and around the site scan application. I think we'll follow up on those questions. They tend to be on the technical side. And of course, we're always happy to do a follow-up call with anybody on anything we presented today, and then specifically site scan for sure. Matt, we're coming pretty close to time here. Did you see one last question you wanted to address, or do you want to go ahead and save those for the summary document?
Yeah, there's two quick ones that I'll answer, and we will put it, in that summary document. One was on that responding to bids. Is it possible to automate the drive time from the nearest location? That's definitely, that is definitely something that can be done. For that application, it's more of like an interactive app, so that users could do that independently, but you can automate it. And then the other one that I thought was good was, how do you find those various real-time data sets like traffic and weather? So those come from Esri's Living Atlas, which is, for any user of our technology, you have access to. It's just a collection of curated content that we make available to anybody. So we'll include a link in that question and answer document, but that is available to you through the Living Atlas.
Okay. Well, being considerate of time, let's go ahead and start to close out. I wanted to provide our contact information. Myself or Matt is very happy to answer any questions, so you can see our emails there. Please reach out to us. And there is a short survey after the webinar, and we'd appreciate it if you just took, the 30 seconds to fill that out. We do have a mug site, a mining user group site on LinkedIn. Encourage you to join us there. We have about 2,100 members, and it's a good place to network on the mining side of things. And there's our Esri Mining Community Forum as well. Previous webinars are all posted, so you can look back to see what other webinars myself and Matt have done, and other members of our team. So that Matt, I think we did pretty good. I think I wanted to thank you. You really helped connect the dots and bring this all to life. So good job. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out. Leave everybody with be safe out there, and thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye.